Miss Grace Stanley. A stenographer's tale amidst personal challenges and historical events. In the early 20th century, a young woman named Grace Stanley arrived in Crossett, Arkansas, a burgeoning town in the heart of the American South. She was to work as a stenographer for Mr. Adam Trieschmann, the sales manager for the Crossett Lumber Company. This was a time when women were beginning to break into professional roles, and Miss Stanley was at the forefront of this shift. A woman of determination and resilience, Miss Stanley's journey to Crossett was not straightforward. In 1904, she had been urged by Mr. Rule at Wilmar to have her foot examined by a good doctor due to the effects of childhood polio. She decided to attend the Saint Louis Centennial, also known as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, a grand event held in 1904 to celebrate the centennial of the 1803 Louisiana Purchase. After the fair, she saw a doctor in St. Louis. Unfortunately, on January 1, 1905, the doctors performed what Miss Stanley referred to as a bungling operation on her foot. The operation and recovery kept her away from work for about 15 months. The people at Fordyce, where she had been working, could not hold her job open for this long. In a remarkable display of determination, Miss Stanley offered to work for free at the Gates Lumber Company at Wilmar. She begged them to let her work without pay just for the experience. Mr. H.C. Rule, the sales manager, couldn't turn down such a proposition, and Miss Stanley began her work without pay. After the first month, the company decided to pay for her board. It was not until a male stenographer was away on vacation that Miss Stanley received her first salary. In March of 1906, Miss Stanley found employment with Mr. A.B. Banks at his insurance and real estate office in Fordyce. She worked there for 9 months before moving to Crossett. Life in Crossett. On January 7, 1907, Miss Stanley began her work as a stenographer for Mr. Adam Trieschmann, the sales manager for the Crossett Lumber Company. At this time, the bank was housed in the front of the Crossett Lumber Company office. On the north side was the bookkeeping department, and the sales department was in the northeast corner of the building. The only private offices were those of Cap Gates, which was anything but private, and Mr. Clark Buckner. No one would dare touch Mr. Gates' desk because Cap was partially blind and he knew just where he had placed everything. Miss Stanley's typewriter desk was located in the office with Mr. Trieschmann. She remembers that the men working in the invoicing department were Billy Wecky and Walter Parsons. She also recalls some of the commission salesmen, including Joe H. Smith from Bloomington, Illinois, S.O. Knudsen from Chicago, Illinois, Leo Miller from Danville, Illinois, Mr. Buffum from Boston, Massachusetts, and Mr. H.E. Isabel from Elkhart, Indiana, among others in Ohio, Michigan, West Virginia, and Iowa. Living conditions in Crossett were pretty good when she came to work in 1907. She lived in the Caldwell Hotel, where the community house is now. She roomed with Mrs. Lena Carnabin, sister of Mr. J.E. Lawson. Miss Stanley also remembers that the Whiteside girls lived in the hotel. The food served by the Caldwells was very good, Miss Stanley says. Miss Stanley recalls that the working girls stayed at Rose Inn for a while. However, the girls were living at the Caldwell Hotel in the spring of 1912 when the first Yale foresters came to Crossett. Professor Bryant and Professor Chapman with their wives stayed at the Caldwell Hotel that year. Later, Miss Stanley took a house in front of the school. Miss Willie Ramsor cooked and kept house for several of the girls. Later still, Miss Stanley's mother came from Fordyce to keep house for the girls. Despite the personal challenges and the changing times, Miss Stanley remained committed to her role. She adapted to the changing times and continued to contribute to the company's success. Her story is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of women in the early 20th century. The information about Miss Stanley and her time in Crossett comes from a valuable historical document, the Crossett Sawmill Interviews, produced by the Ashley County Genealogical Society in 1995. This document provides a unique perspective on the early 20th century life in Crossett, Arkansas, and serves as a reminder of the important role that individuals like Miss Stanley played in shaping the History of the town and the company. In conclusion, the story of Miss Grace Stanley offers a fascinating glimpse into a pivotal period in the history of Crossett, Arkansas and the United States. It's a tale of progress, resilience and the power of individual contributions in shaping the course of history.